Hi, I'm the Casual Lamer, and you might know me before doing this video as the guy who does ESO content. However, today I want to play around with a bit of a new format, a new idea that I've been working on for the last, well, week or so, more like contemplating it and thinking about what I would like to do. And in this format, I will, with the most soothing and most ASMR voice I can muster, talk about things, talk about the stuff that you can put on in the background or just for you to fall asleep. We generally would like to tackle subjects that have to do with gaming, obviously. And today I have why we play MMORPGs prepped for you. It's not like a full script kind of thing. It's more like a conglomerate of thoughts. I have a bit of keynotes here as well. And in the background I have some World of Warcraft mining in the background going, just to have some familiar sound effects for you. In this instance I just started out with mining, so if you are a long-term World of Warcraft player, you will notice that yeah, this is my first time trying to mine. But it will get better in the future. So, why do we play MMORPGs? Without further ado, let's get into the thing that I want to talk to you about, and I want to start with a bit of an anecdote of my personal life. When I was in therapy, it's not a surprise that I am struggling a lot with mental health issues to this day. I was in therapy for 3 years, and my therapist once wanted me to go into an addiction counseling. In Germany, we have these institutions where you can go to, where you can get other people who are trained in the field to assess a situation that you explain to them. So in my instance, it was gaming, and my therapist wanted me to make that quote-unquote test. So I went to that addiction counseling, quote-unquote. It's, by the way, free. I know this is a foreign concept for a lot of you people who are not so familiar with free healthcare and all that stuff, but I am not here to shit on you guys, so just to give you some context about that. And I had multiple sessions in there, and so I explained them. I was honest too. It was not like I was lying or anything like that. And long story short is, they did not think I was working, or was struggling rather, with an addiction in terms of gaming. And when I came back to my therapist, she said, look, I want you to go through another addiction counseling. And I was like, heck, what? I mean, you want me to go into addiction counseling as long as it fits your narrative? And the reason I'm telling you all of that is because this situation has shifted my perception of why I play, or rather how I assess and judge the fact that I play for the coming years. It's gotten so bad that at some point whenever I was playing video games, I felt bad because I was faced with that assessment from my therapist that essentially gaming is wrong, and however I engage in it, I must be addicted. And it got me thinking, this whole subject got me thinking, why do we even play? Like, obviously, the obvious answer would be, well, it's to have fun, right? And yes, surely that is one of the main factors, obviously. We wouldn't engage in World of Warcraft, in ESO, in Final Fantasy XIV, in Guild Wars 2, you name it, if it wasn't fun. But is it really all that? Is it just fun? And I would say, no, it isn't. It is not. There are many more reasons, I believe, that are at play, specifically when we talk about MMORPGs in this context. So the first aspect that I would like to tackle is escapism as a teenager. I started playing World of Warcraft in 2009. So I was 12 years old. I was born in 1997 and I'm 28 right now. So in 2009 I started playing World of Warcraft. I was 12 years old. And what do you guys face when you are 12 years old? Well, you realize you're not really I mean, if we would look at it today, we were still a child. But you were not like a child like in a 6-year-old. You were 12. You were not an adult. You were not a grown-up. But things changed. Things changed. And one thing that children have in common, usually when they're healthy, is they have a overwhelming sense of curiosity and an attention to detail. And this curiosity gets lost the older you get. And this is a time when I was 12 where exactly that happened. The world became disillusioned. The world became rational. The world lost its sense of wonder. But when I started and I set my first step in World of Warcraft, all of that just changed. Everything was new again. The rules of the world that I realized were a reality in the real life were not here anymore. And I was in a world where I did not know where the limits are. I did not know what the rules are. There were no limitations as to what I am able to be, as opposed to the real life where I got into an understanding, slowly but steadily, that the world follows rules and the world is rational and the world is not as wondrous as World of Warcraft is. So that is obviously one aspect of escapism as a teenager. Naturally, for many of you people, I'm assuming there are different factors to that as well. For instance, like bullying in school, something like this. That is not something that really happened to me. However, I have that a similar base to that as well, because for me, interaction with peers was never really my thing. Interaction with people my age did not interest me. I was, and I frankly still am, a loner. And I felt solace in being alone, not having to deal with other people my age, because it just didn't give me anything. And at the time I didn't know. Later, much later, it was clear that this is not normal. This is not how you're supposed to feel as a young teenager. But that's a different topic. So being a loner and realizing the limitations of the real world were the things that drove me into World of Warcraft. And on top of that, there is not just, like I said, it is not just the fun that we have in games like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2 or Final Fantasy. I don't know what games you play. There is also this sense of progression, and that's why I said this is specifically for MMORPGs today, because MMORPGs, aside from being different in the genre, they also have an essential difference when it comes to your account. So if you play the latest Call of Duty, I guess, you play the story, maybe you play some multiplayer, and then that's it. Or you play a good single player game, The Last of Us, or I don't know, Days Gone, whatever. The difference is pretty clear right away, because Days Gone, Last of Us, they do have an end. They do have an end. They have a start and an end, and in the game you become stronger or you get access to more features, whatever, in order to beat the game, and then the game is done. Some people like to play multiple times, but I think most people just play it once and then they are done with it. At least that's, for me, the case. So, in MMORPGs, however, that is vastly different, because an MMORPG, provided that the servers don't go offline, does not have an end. And when a game does not have an end, then that changes how you perceive your account. Because you see, I played Elder Scrolls Online for a long time. Just recently I went into a break. And I played it for 2,000 hours. So there's, first of all, there's very few games out there or genres that can allow for that to happen. I guess survival games are another instance for this. But the thing is with these 2,000 hours is that I did stuff in the first 100 hours of these 2,000 hours that I still benefited out of in my 2000th Jesus, English, hour. And that is interesting, because that means that the time you put into your account does mean that you work towards an achievement and a progression and a sense of accomplishment for your entire account that exceeds the time for the playtime where you did it in. I'm running a bit into a limitation of my English skills right here. I hope you can bear with me. But what I'm trying to say is that the stuff I did in these 100 hours does hold value in the last hour I played ESO. And that is also true for World of Warcraft. Obviously, World of Warcraft is vastly different in the sense that it is a game with massive vertical progression instead of horizontal progression, which Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2 are very famous for. However, there are still things in World of Warcraft that do hold value later. So, for instance, the whole mount collection stuff, the whole transmogrification stuff, sometimes even professions that you leveled, because you can craft stuff that is worth some gold still years later. For an instance for this would be the Pandaria engineering and alchemy, because you can craft a sky golem that is still worth some gold. I think nowadays that's probably better ways to do this, but when I was still very active in World of Warcraft, I just recently returned, that was the go-to kind of thing that you can do. There are other examples that are probably alluding to me right now, but the point is that playing a World of Warcraft, a Guild Wars 2, an ESO account is so different in a single player game, not just because there are other players around, but because your achievements, your progression, and your experiences in the game are tied to your account. And when your account becomes tied to experiences, that means your account is also tied to emotion. So I want you, if you are still listening and not asleep already, picture this. Picture your most played MMORPG, or the MMORPG you have the fondest memories of. And now imagine your account gets deleted. All your characters are gone, all your mounts you've collected, all the collectibles you have collected, all the sets, the outfits, all that stuff is gone forever. No way to return it. It's all gone. It's just in your memory still. What is your first thought? Excuse me. What is your first thought? What is your first emotion to that? I can tell you what my first emotion is, and my first emotion is dread. I would hate that to happen. And it's not because I would lose a level 80 character in World of Warcraft. That's easy. That is easy. I can just create a new account and level to 80 again. Leveling is fast in World of Warcraft. That's not the thing. But all the memories that I have tied to these characters would feel like they were gone. I mean, they are still in my mind, obviously, but that's what I'm trying to convey here, is that your account is not just an account, but it became a companion at some point because you spent so much time in the game. So it isn't just escapism and also not just fun, but it is also a sense of familiarity and also a sense of kinship or friendship. I know this might sound a bit melodramatic, but if you really think about it, then this is what happens here. So we have many aspects already why MMORPGs are so different and why they are so interesting for us to play. We have the obvious point, we have the fun, we have the escapist part, and we have the sense of progression. And when we talk about escapism, you might think now, well, I am not a teenager anymore, I'm an adult. And I guess that's correct. But the sense of escapism is still something that obviously I just point out the obvious here, alright? Escapism is obviously still a thing when you are an adult. It's just that the things that you escape from are in one way very similar, but in other ways very different. So maybe as an adult you don't have the struggles you had as a teenager with your peers, or the struggles that you don't know what kind of person you are, what the kind of person you want to be, but more like financial stuff, maybe a breakup, maybe someone cheated on you, maybe death, maybe someone died, someone got sick, you lost your job. There's many things that you would like to escape from in the real world that are arguably different from when you were a teenager. I mean, at least I hope you were not faced with a lot of the terrible things that can happen as an adult, as a teenager. And if we go back to the beginning of when I said I felt that my therapist thought that whatever, or in what way ever, Jesus English, it doesn't matter in what way I engage in gaming. That's what I thought my therapist was trying to convey to convey me, is wrong, quote unquote. So I was in a perpetual state of feeling when I play video games it's wrong because I'm escaping reality, and I was under the misconception that you have to face reality at all times. And this is funny right now because I think I'm going to die to that mine. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look at the shoes. And this is a misconception, alright? This is a misconception that I have been, even today, struggle with accepting that it is not true. Because you see, you might be thinking like, yeah, that's obvious, Lamer, what are you talking about? But if you are somewhat like me, then I have to tell you, escapism is not wrong. Escapism is healthy, and escapism is necessary. Obviously, escapism becomes an issue when you ignore your problems constantly and you don't address things in your real life. I hope we don't have to establish that. I think that is clear. But the human mind is not designed to be in stressful situations every time. The human mind is designed to have events of procreation. Wait, procreation is like when you... That's the wrong word, isn't it? I always miss these up. Procreation is, I think, when you multiply, right? Let me put it in a different way. The human mind is designed to have moments of leisure. I think that word is definitely correct. I'm sorry. I was under the impression, however, that I can only ever be happy if I make it happen that whenever I am faced with reality at all times, 24/7, I am still fine with it. But that's not how it works. That is not how it works. If you are faced with reality 24/7, there is no way in life that you will stay healthy. It doesn't have to be, look, it doesn't have to be MMORPGs, but in this instance we are talking about MMORPGs. Maybe your escapism of choice is reading, or watching movies, or knitting, or crocheting, or, you know, all the different things that exist in real life. What I'm trying to say is that it's fine. It's fine. You're doing good, all right? You're doing fine. It's completely fine to get lost in World of Warcraft. It is fine to get lost in knitting, it is fine to get lost in reading, and it is completely fine to not force yourself to be facing, and I'm putting this very melodramatic right now, with the horrors of the world 24/7. You will get sick if you do that. And it is completely fine to escape. And with that, we have established another motive. I mean, it is kind of the part of escapism, but we have established that it is necessary for us to function. It is necessary for us to get respite, to have some sort of recess and a reset as well. And let me tell you, it took me many years to get back to a point where I can play video games and not feel bad about it. Yes, video games can become a hindrance when you want to get your life back together. Yes, that is true. But playing video games and getting lost, losing sense of time, is not the worst thing that can happen to you, alright? So what I can say is, that sounds a bit melodramatic too, but I think in a way, video games and MMORPGs specifically saved me in a way that if I had to face reality at all times when I was younger, I don't know what would have happened to me. Maybe I would have become a different human. Maybe I would have died. I don't know. I know that these are very contrary statements, but that's what I'm trying to say, is that I don't know. And I, for one, am extremely grateful to have found a way to decompress, to relax, to forget. Because it is important that we do. It is important that we are compassionate to ourselves and allow for us to take time off. Let your mind wander, even if it is in a world that doesn't actually exist. And with that, I hope you are either sound asleep or you are willing to give the video a thumbs up and maybe give it a comment too, to let me know what you think about this comment. Not about this comment, about this format. Let me know in the comments about your comment, what you think about your comment. Oh, Giga Chat. And with that, even when I switched my game, I leave you with, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have an awesome day. You take care of yourself, and I will see you next time.